The morning mist clung to the crystal formations of planet Stellaris like ghostly fingers, creating an otherworldly beauty that never failed to take Zara's breath away. She adjusted her field scanner and continued her trek through the Whispering Valley, a place where the mineral deposits sang in harmonious frequencies when the wind passed through them. Today, however, the usual melody was replaced by something else entirely. A low, mournful sound drifted through the air. Not mechanical, not human, but something alive and in pain. Zara Winters had been studying alien life forms for 3 years on this remote research station, but nothing had prepared her for what she found in the clearing ahead. Nestled between 2 towering crystal spires lay a creature that belonged in ancient Earth legends. A dragon-dotted scales shimmered between silver and deep blue, catching the pale morning light like liquid metal. Massive wings, easily spanning 30 feet, lay, crumpled and torn against its serpentine body. The creature's breathing was labored, and dark blood pooled beneath wounds that looked deliberately inflicted. "My stars," Zara whispered, dropping her equipment pack. She activated her communicator with trembling fingers. "Dr. Reed, this is Zara. I need an emergency medical team at coordinates 77 Alpha. And sir, you're not going to believe what I've found." The response crackled through static. "What's your situation, Winters?" "I've found a wounded dragon, sir. A real living dragon." A long pause. "Say again?" "A dragon, Dr. Reed. Injured but alive." "It's magnificent." Within the hour, a small team arrived via hover transport. Dr. Jonas Reed, the station director, stepped out first, his weathered face creased with skepticism that quickly transformed into wonder. Behind him came Finn, Zara's young assistant, whose mouth fell open at the sight. "Incredible," Dr. Reed breathed. "In 40 years of xenobiology, I've never seen anything like this." The dragon's eyes, large and intelligent, tracked their movements. When the team approached, it tried to lift its great head, but the effort was too much. A sound emerged from its throat, not quite a growl, not quite a plea, but something that spoke of fear and desperation. "Everyone stay back," Zara instructed, her voice gentle but firm. "Look at its body language. It's terrified." She was right. Despite its massive size and fearsome appearance, the dragon was clearly frightened. Its scales flickered through rapid color changes, a beautiful but alarming display that Zara instinctively understood as distress signals. "The wounds," Finn observed, his voice hushed. "They're not from any animal, I know. Those look like energy. Urns." Zara knelt at what she hoped was a safe distance. The dragon's gaze fixed on her, and she saw something that made her heart ache. Intelligence, pain, and underneath it all, a desperate hope that perhaps these strange new creatures might help rather than harm. "Hello, beautiful one," she said. Softly, "We want to help you." The dragon's head tilted slightly, and the rapid color changes in its scales slowed. Zara took this as encouragement and moved a little closer. "Careful, Zara," Dr. Reed warned. "We don't know anything about its defensive capabilities." "I don't think it has the strength to defend itself," Zara replied, studying the creatures. Labored breathing. "Look at these wounds. Someone or something did this deliberately. These aren't accidental injuries." She pulled medical supplies from her pack, the same bio-friendly materials they used for treating the various creatures they studied. The dragon watched every movement, its breathing shallow but steady. "I'm going to try to help your wounds," Zara explained, holding up a container of healing gel. "This might sting at first, but it should help." To her amazement, the dragon shifted slightly, exposing more of its injured side. The gesture was unmistakable. It understood and was consenting to treatment. As Zara began cleaning the wounds, she discovered something disturbing. Embedded in several of the injuries were small metal fragments, unlike any material she'd seen before. They pulsed with a faint red light. "These aren't natural," she told Dr. Reed, carefully extracting one of the fragments. Someone was tracking this creature. The dragon's reaction to the removal of the tracking device was immediate. Its scales brightened, shifting from distressed purples and grays to hopeful golds and greens. A sound emerged from its throat, melodic and clearly grateful. "Did you hear that?" Finn whispered. "It's trying to communicate." For the next several hours, Zara worked tirelessly to treat the dragon's injuries. The creature remained remarkably still, only flinching when she worked on the deeper wounds. Gradually, she noticed its breathing becoming stronger and more regular as the sun reached its zenith. Something extraordinary happened. The dragon began to shrink. Not drastically, but enough that it went from the size of a small transport to something more manageable. Its features remained the same, but now it stood no taller than a large horse. Voluntary size alteration, Dr. Reed mused. The metabolic implications alone are staggering. The dragon struggled to its feet, wobbled for a moment, then took a tentative step toward Zara. When she didn't retreat, it came closer, until its great head was level with hers, up close. Zara could see that its eyes held depths she'd never encountered in any creature. They were the color of storm clouds with flecks of silver lightning, ancient yet somehow young, wild yet gentle. "What happened to you?" she whispered, as if in response. Images suddenly flooded Zara's mind. Not her own thoughts, but visions from elsewhere. She saw sleek, dark ships pursuing the dragon through space. Creatures with too many arms and faces, like living shadows firing weapons that crackled with malevolent energy. She felt the dragon's terror, its desperate flight, and its crash landing on Stellaris. The mental connection lasted only seconds, but it left Zara gasping. The dragon stepped back, looking concerned at her reaction. "It's telepathic," she managed. "To tell the others. It just showed me what happened. There are hunters after it. Dark ships, shadow creatures. They've been tracking it." Dr. Reed's expression grew grave. "Those metal fragments you removed." "Tracking beacons," Zara confirmed. "But they're destroyed now. The question is, will more hunters come looking?" The dragon's scales shifted to deep, warning reds, and it gazed skyward with obvious anxiety. The message was clear. Yes, they would. "Come, then we need to get you somewhere safe," Zara said, placing her hand gently on the dragon's neck. The scales were warm and smooth, like polished stone. "Will you come with us?" The dragon considered for a long moment, its gaze moving between Zara and the others. Finally, it dipped its magnificent head in what could only be a nod. "We'll protect you," Zara promised, though she had no idea how they could possibly stand against hunters with technology far beyond their own. "I give you my word." The dragon's scales brightened to warm golds and soft blues, colors Zara was beginning to associate with trust and gratitude. It lowered itself to the ground in a clear invitation. With a mixture of excitement and terror, Zara climbed onto the dragon's back. Its scales shifted to provide better grip, and she felt the powerful muscles beneath her as the creature rose into the air as they flew toward the research station. Zara couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. Not just for her, not just for the station, but for humanity's place in the galaxy. The dragon she now thought of as Ember had chosen to trust them. The question was, would they prove worthy of that trust when the real test came? Because Zara was certain it would come, and soon. Behind them, the Whispering Valley sang its crystal songs. But even those ancient melodies seemed to carry a note of warning on the wind. The research station's medical bay had never housed anything quite like Ember. The dragon had maintained its smaller size during the flight, but even so, the standard examination tables were inadequate. Dr. Reed had ordered the cargo bay converted into a temporary medical facility, complete with scanning equipment and comfortable bedding made from the station's emergency thermal blankets. Ember lay quietly. As Zara completed her thorough examination, the dragon's scales maintaining a steady pattern of soft blues and greens that she had learned indicated contentment and trust. It had been 2 days since their first encounter, and the bond between them had grown stronger with each passing hour. The cellular regeneration rate is unlike anything in our databases, Zara reported to Dr. Reed, studying the holographic displays showing Ember's vital signs. The wounds that looked fatal 48 hours ago are already showing significant healing. And the telepathic abilities? Dr. Reed asked, his scientific curiosity warring with obvious concern. Limited but growing stronger, Zara admitted. Ember can share images and basic emotions. I think with time, we might develop actual communication. As if responding to her words, Ember lifted its head and fixed those storm cloud eyes on Zara. Suddenly, her mind filled with a single clear concept. Not words, but understanding. Ember was trying to tell her something important. The images that followed made Zara's blood run cold. Dark ships, dozens of them, moving through space with predatory grace. The hunters Ember, called the Shadowkin, were not just tracking one escaped dragon. They were conducting a systematic hunt across multiple star systems. They're not just after you, Zara said aloud, her voice tight with realization. They're hunting your entire species. Ember's scales flickered through rapid patterns of deep reds and blacks, confirming her understanding. The dragon shared more images. Hidden dragon settlements being attacked, young dragons being captured, ancient ones being killed for their scales and bones. It was genocide disguised as hunting. We have to warn someone, Finn said from his position near the communication console. The Galactic Council, the Trade Federation, anybody who'll listen. Dr. Reed shook his head grimly. With what proof? The testimony of one dragon that most people would assume is a hoax. Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Captain Nova Sterling's voice crackled over the intercom system. All personnel to emergency stations. Unknown vessels approaching our system. ETA 18 minutes. Zara's heart sank as she looked at Ember. The dragon's scales had gone completely black, a color she had never seen before, but somehow knew meant mortal danger. In the command center, Captain Nova Sterling stood before a wall of displays showing tactical information. She was a career military officer who had been assigned to protect the research station. Her dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun, and her uniform crisp despite the early hour. Report, Dr. Reed demanded as they entered. 3 ships unknown. Configuration, Nova replied without looking away from the screens. They're not responding to our hail attempts, and their approach vector suggests hostile intent. They're Shadowkin vessels, Zara said. They're here for Ember. Nova turned to face her, one eyebrow raised. The dragon? How could you possibly know that? Telepathic communication. The Shadowkin are hunters. They've been tracking Ember across multiple systems. Even if that's true, Nova said, we're a research station, not a military base. We have defensive shields and a few light weapons. Nothing that could stand against dedicated warships. Ember had followed them to the command center, moving with surprising grace despite its size. Now the dragon approached one of the vacant control stations and placed a clawed hand on the interface. The screen immediately came alive with complex star charts and technical specifications. What's it doing? Nova asked. Ember's trying to help, Zara realized. These are technical specifications for Shadowkin ships. Weapons, shielding, propulsion systems. The dragon's telepathic voice suddenly filled Zara's mind, clearer than ever before. Tell your warrior that Shadowkin ships have a weakness. They're Dark energy shields can be disrupted by crystal resonance frequencies. Your valley's singing stones could be the key. Zara quickly relayed this information to Nova, who studied the technical data with growing interest. If this is accurate, Nova said, we might actually have a chance. The crystal formations in Whispering Valley generate specific harmonic frequencies. If we could amplify those and broadcast them at the right moment, it would have to be perfectly timed, Dr. Reed observed. And we'd need to get the dragons close enough to the valley for the resonance to affect their shields. Not dragons, Zara corrected. Dragon. Singular. Ember is the only one here. Ember's scales suddenly shifted to brilliant silver, and the dragon's telepathic voice carried a note of excitement. More images flowed into Zara's mind. Not memories this time, but something happening in real time. Ember's not alone, Zara gasped. There's another dragon coming. Ripple, Ember's bondmate. On the tactical displays, a fourth ship appeared at the edge of the system. This one was different from the dark, angular Shadowkin vessels. It moved with organic grace, its hull shimmering like dragon scales. Is that ship alive? Finn whispered in awe through Ember. Zara sensed the truth. Dragon ships weren't built in the traditional sense. They were grown, nurtured, created through a symbiotic relationship between dragon and living. Crystal technology that humanity was only beginning to understand. The new arrival changed everything. Nova immediately began calculating new tactical scenarios while Dr. Reed coordinated with the station's technical staff to set up resonance amplifiers in Whispering Valley. The Shadowkin ships will be in weapon range in 12 minutes, Nova announced. If we're going to try this crystal resonance plan, we need to move now. Ember communicated urgently with its approaching bondmate, while Zara served as translator. The plan that emerged was audacious and dangerous. Ember and Ripple would lure the Shadowkin ships into the valley, flying low enough to trigger the crystal resonance when Nova's team activated the amplifiers. The timing has to be perfect, Nova emphasized. If the dragons are too high when we activate the resonance, it won't affect the Shadowkin shields. Too low, and the dragons themselves might be caught in the frequency disruption. We can do this, Zara said, though she felt far from certain. Ember trusts us. That has to count for something. As they prepared to leave for Whispering Valley, Ember approached Zara and lowered its great head until they were eye to eye. The dragon's telepathic voice was gentle but serious. If this fails, if the Shadow can capture me, promise you will not let them take the others. There are dragon younglings hidden in the outer systems. They must be protected. We won't fail. Zara replied, placing her hands on either side of Ember's head. And we won't let them hurt any more of your people. I promise. The dragon's scales brightened to warm gold, and Zara felt a sensation she had never experienced before. Not just communication, but true connection. Ember was sharing not just thoughts, but emotions, memories, hopes for the future. In that moment, Zara understood that what was happening between them went beyond xenobiology or first contact protocols. They were forming a bond that transcended species, a friendship built on mutual trust and respect. Time to go, Nova announced. Shadowkin vessels have entered the atmosphere. As they raced toward Whispering Valley, Zara riding on Ember's back, while Nova's team followed in hover transports. She could see the dark shapes of enemy ships descending through the clouds. They moved like hunting predators, silent and deadly. Ripples. Ship landed in the valley just as they arrived, and Zara got her first look at Ember's bondmate. Where Ember's scales were silver blue, Ripples were deep emerald with streaks of gold. The dragon was slightly smaller than Ember, but moved with lethal grace. The reunion between the two dragons was brief but touching. They pressed their heads together, scales brightening in synchronized patterns that spoke of deep affection and shared purpose. Amplifiers are in position, Nova reported through her communicator. Dragons need to be at exactly 200 meters altitude when I give the signal. The Shadowkin ships appeared over the valley rim, their hulls absorbing light rather than reflecting it. They were beautiful in a terrible way, like living shadows given form and purpose. Ember and Ripple launched themselves into the air, flying in complex patterns that drew the enemy ships deeper into the valley. The Shadowkin vessels followed, confident in their superior firepower and technology. Now, Nova shouted. The crystal formations throughout Whispering Valley began to sing, but this was no gentle melody. Amplified by Nova's equipment, the harmonic frequencies created a sound that seemed to shake the very air. The effect on the Shadowkin ships was immediate and devastating. Their dark shields flickered and failed, revealing sleek hulls that suddenly seemed vulnerable rather than menacing. Nova's team opened fire with their light weapons, and for the first time in the conflict, they were able to damage the enemy vessels. But the Shadowkin were not defenseless. Even with their shields down, they possessed formidable weapons. Energy. Beams lanced through the air, forcing Ember and Ripple to dodge and weave frantically. One beam caught Ripple's wing, and the emerald dragon spiraled toward the ground. Ember dove to catch its bondmate, but the maneuver left both dragons vulnerable. The largest Shadowkin ship moved in for the kill, its weapons charging for a final strike. But as it prepared to fire, something unexpected happened. More ships appeared in the sky above the valley. Not Shadowkin vessels, but dragon ships, dozens of them, their hulls gleaming with every color of the rainbow. The cavalry had arrived. The sky above, Whispering Valley, erupted into a symphony of color and light as the dragon fleet descended from the clouds. Each ship was a masterpiece of organic design, their living hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that spoke of ancient wisdom and terrible power. At their head flew a vessel larger than all the others, its scales deep crimson with veins of molten gold. Zara watched in breathless wonder as the dragon ships engaged the Shadowkin vessels. This was no mere battle, but a dance of aerial combat that had been perfected over millennia. The dragons moved in perfect coordination, their ships responding to thought rather than mechanical controls. Elder Crimson's voice suddenly filled Zara's mind, transmitted through Ember's telepathic connection. The ancient dragon's mental presence felt vast and profound, like standing at the edge of an ocean of accumulated knowledge. Young human who befriended our lost child, your courage has not gone unnoticed. Today, you have helped forge bonds that will echo through the ages. The battle above them was turning decisively in favor of the dragons. The Shadowkin ships, their dark shields still disrupted by the crystal resonance, found themselves outmatched and outnumbered. One by one, they began to retreat, their sleek forms disappearing into the upper atmosphere. But the largest Shadowkin vessel, commanded by what Ember identified as a Shadowkin warlord, refused to flee. Instead, it descended toward the valley floor, its weapons charging for what appeared to be a final desperate strike at the human research station. "They're targeting the colony," Captain Nova Sterling reported through her communicator, her voice tight with alarm. "If that ship gets through, thousands of civilians will die." Ember struggled to rise from where it had landed to protect the injured Ripple. The silver-blue dragon's scales were flickering between determination and exhaustion, its earlier injuries reopened by the strain of aerial combat. "You're hurt," Zara said, placing a restraining hand on Ember's neck. "You can't fight that thing alone." "I must try," Ember's telepathic voice replied. "Your people protected me when I was defenseless. Now I must protect them." Before Zara could argue further, Elder Crimson's massive ship positioned itself between the Shadowkin warlord and the research station. The ancient dragon's vessel was 3 times the size of the enemy ship, its crimson hull blazing with protective fury. What followed was less a battle than a demonstration of supreme power. Elder Crimson's ship moved with impossible grace for something so large, avoiding the Shadowkin's energy beams, while returning fire with weapons that seemed to bend reality itself. Beams of crystalline light lanced out from the dragon ship, each strike precisely calculated to disable rather than destroy. The Shadowkin warlord's vessel shuddered under the assault, its dark hull cracking like broken stone. Emergency systems sparked and failed, and the ship began to list heavily to one side. Enough, Elder Crimson's mental voice boomed across the valley, projected with such force that even the humans could hear it clearly. Your hunt ends here, creature of shadow. Withdraw your forces and never return to this system, or face the full wrath of the Dragon Council. From the damaged Shadowkin ship came a response, transmitted on standard communication frequencies so the humans could understand. The voice was like grinding metal, cold and utterly alien. This is not over, Scalebearer. The Consortium has marked this world and all who dwell upon it. We will return with greater numbers. Then you will find us ready, Elder Crimson replied, and you will find that humanity now stands under dragon protection. Touch them and face extinction. The Shadowkin? Warlord's ship limped away, following the rest of its fleet into the darkness between stars. As the immediate threat passed, the dragon fleet began to descend, their ships settling into the crystal formations of Whispering Valley with remarkable delicacy. Zara helped support Ember as they walked toward Elder Crimson's landing site. The ancient dragon that emerged from the ship was magnificent and terrible, easily twice Ember's size even when the younger dragon was at full scale. Its crimson scales held the depth of aged wine, and its eyes burned with the wisdom of countless centuries. Ember of the Silver Storm, Elder Crimson spoke aloud, its voice carrying harmonics that made the valley crystals sing softly. You have done well, young one. Your desperate flight led us to discover remarkable beings. The ancient dragon turned its attention to Zara, and she felt the full weight of its scrutiny. It was like being examined by a living constellation, vast and incomprehensible. Dr. Zara Winters, Elder Crimson continued, your species possesses qualities we had thought lost to the galaxy. Compassion without expectation of reward. Courage in the face of impossible odds. Most rare of all, the ability to see personhood in forms unlike your own. We're not perfect, Zara replied honestly. But most humans try to do what's right when they understand what's at stake. Elder Crimson's massive head tilted in what might have been amusement, modesty as well. Most civilizations we encounter immediately boast of their achievements and demand recognition. You speak of your flaws with the same honesty as your virtues. Dr. Reed and Captain Nova approached cautiously, clearly awed by the ancient dragon's presence. Other members of the research station staff began to emerge from emergency shelters, their faces reflecting wonder and barely contained excitement. On behalf of the Stellaris research station and the human colonies in this system, Dr. Reed said formally, I want to thank you for your intervention. Without your help, we would all be dead or worse. The debt runs both ways, Elder Crimson replied. Your people saved one of our own when they could easily have chosen safety over compassion. This creates bonds that transcend species. Over the following hours, Zara found herself serving as an unofficial ambassador between humans and dragons. Ember's telepathic abilities allowed her to facilitate communication, translating concepts and emotions that didn't always have direct equivalents between species. She learned that the dragons were an ancient species, one of the first to achieve spaceflight and interstellar civilization. They had watched countless younger species rise and fall, most destroying themselves through war, greed, or environmental catastrophe. We had begun to believe that wisdom and compassion were finite resources in the galaxy, Elder Crimson explained, during a formal meeting in the station's main conference room. The ancient dragon had reduced its size to fit through the doors, but its presence still dominated the space. Your species offers hope that we were wrong. The dragons shared technology. Freely, but not in the way humans might have expected. Rather than blueprints or manufacturing specifications, they offered knowledge, understanding, and perspective. They taught human engineers to think of their ships as living entities deserving respect. They showed human doctors healing techniques that worked with natural biological processes rather than against them. Most importantly, they offered protection. The Dragon Council would establish a permanent presence in human space, deterring future Shadowkin incursions and other threats that a young species couldn't handle alone. But this protection comes with responsibility, Elder Crimson warned. Power shared must be power earned through wisdom. We will not enable humanity to become another galaxy-spanning tyranny. What do you mean? Captain Nova asked. Other species have made contact with young civilizations before, the ancient dragon explained. Usually, the younger species becomes dependent on superior technology, losing their own growth and development. Or worse, they use gifted power to conquer their neighbors. We won't let that happen, Zara promised. We'll learn, we'll grow, but we'll remember where we came from. Ember, who had been resting nearby while Ripple's injuries were treated by dragon healers, raised its head and shared a private telepathic message with Zara. The Elder speaks truly, but there is more. The dragons are dying out, not from war or disease, but from loneliness. We are an ancient people, and we have grown weary of watching younger species make the same mistakes over and over. Your people offer something we had almost forgotten: hope for the future. As the formal negotiations continued, Zara slipped away to the medical bay where Ripple was recovering. The emerald dragon was awake and alert, its wing properly bandaged. By dragon healing techniques that seemed to blend advanced science with something approaching magic. Thank you, Ripple spoke aloud, its voice melodious compared to Ember's deeper tones. For protecting my bondmate when I could not. Ember would have done the same for any of us, Zara replied. That's what friends do. Friends, Ripple repeated, seeming to test the word. Yes, that is what we are now, isn't it? Not just dragon and human, but friends across the void. Over the following days, the research station transformed into something unprecedented in human history. Dragons and humans worked side by side, sharing knowledge, techniques, and stories. Children from the nearby colony visited daily, their natural curiosity overcoming any fear of the magnificent creatures. Ember had become something of a celebrity among the human children, demonstrating size-changing abilities and creating beautiful light patterns with its scales. But Zara noticed that the dragon seemed happiest during quiet moments, when it could share deeper telepathic conversations about science, philosophy, and the nature of friendship. Will you stay? Zara asked one evening as they watched Stellaris' twin suns set over Whispering Valley. Now that your people are here, will you return to dragon space? Ember's scales shifted through thoughtful patterns of blue and silver. Elder Crimson has asked me to serve as a permanent liaison to humanity. My experiences make me uniquely qualified to help both our species understand each other. And Ripple will stay as well. We have found something here worth protecting. Not just your colony, but the hope you represent. The possibility that intelligence and compassion can coexist, that different species can be more together than they ever were apart. As the stars emerged one by one in the darkening sky, Zara reflected on how much had changed since that morning in the valley when she first found a wounded dragon. What had begun as a rescue mission had become the foundation of an alliance that would reshape both human and dragon civilization. The future was uncertain. The Shadowkin threat remained real, and there would undoubtedly be other challenges ahead. But for the first time in generations, neither species faced those challenges alone. In the distance, dragon ships and human transports moved through the atmosphere in coordinated patterns, their lights creating new constellations against the ancient stars. It was a sight that would have been impossible to imagine just days before, but now felt as natural as sunrise. "What happens now?" Zara asked. Ember's telepathic voice carried warmth, determination, and something that might have been joy. "Now, we build something the galaxy has never seen before. A true partnership between species, based on mutual respect and shared dreams. Now we prove that friendship can bridge any void, no matter how vast." The dragon's scales brightened to brilliant gold, and Zara felt the truth of those words resonate in her heart. This was just the beginning.